चरण धौ तपाई। शुभ शंख बाजी मंदिरे तब आजी। शुभ शंख बाजी मंदिरे तब आजी। शुभ शंख बाजी मंदिरे तब आजी। घे नाम वंदन नवरचन राजी। घे नाम वंदन नवरचन राजी। पलकर प्रीति पुलकर ताती खेली जाऊ तनु छुई। पलकर प्रीति पुलकर ताती खेली जाऊ तनु छुई। जीवन फूल मु फुटी लुटी पड़ू से चारु चरण चाही। जीवन फूल मु फुटी लुटी पड़ू से चारु चरण चाही। से चारु चरण चाही। लुह झरी गला आखिरे आखिरे चरण धौ तपाई। चरण धौ तपाई। मन जली गला वेदना नियारी तुम गमन चाही। तुम गमन चाही। लुह झरी गला आखिरे आखिरे चरण धौ तपाई। चरण धौ तपाई। जय जय गुरु जय। फूलटिए होई फुटिछि ठाकुरा तुम से पयरे लुटिबा पाई। फूलटिए होई फुटिछि ठाकुरा तुम से पयरे लुटिबा पाई। बासना ही बोले दियो नाही ठेली। बासना ही बोले दियो नाही ठेली। मिनती श्रीपदे करे गोसाई। मिनती श्रीपदे करे गोसाई। फूलटिए होई फुटिछि ठाकुरा तुम से पयरे लुटिबा पाई। फूलरे महक भरिबार पाई। फूलरे महक भरिबार पाई। साधन ରହି ଅଛି ମଥା ନୁଆଇ ବସି ରହି ଅଛି ମଥା ନୁଆଇ ଫୁଲଟିଏ ହୋଇ ଫୁଟିଛି ଠାକୁର ତୁମ ଶ୍ରୀପୟରେ ଲୋଟିବା ପାଇଁ ତୁମ ଶ୍ରୀପୟରେ ଲୋଟିବା ପାଇଁ କେବେ ହେବ ତୁମ ଶରଣ ପରଶ କେବେ ହେବ ତୁମ ଶରଣ ପରଶ ନିରାଶ ପରାଣେ ଖେଳିବ ହରସ ନିରାଶ ପରାଣେ ଖେଳିବ ହରସ ସୁବାସିତ ଫୁଲ ବାସ ବିଛୁରିବ ସୁବାସିତ ଫୁଲ ବାସ ବିଛୁରିବ ଜଗତେ ମହକ ଦେବ ଖେଳାଇ ଜଗତେ ମହକ ଦେବ ଖେଳାଇ ଫୁଲଟିଏ ହୋଇ ଫୁଟିଛି ଠାକୁର ତୁମ ଶ୍ରୀପୟରେ ଲୋଟିବା ପାଇଁ ତୁମ ଶ୍ରୀପୟରେ ଲୋଟିବା ପାଇଁ ଅମୂଲ୍ୟ ଜୀବନ ପାଇଛି ଠାକୁର ଅମୂଲ୍ୟ ଜୀବନ ପାଇଛି ଠାକୁର କୃପା ବାରିବିନା ହେବ ନାର ଖାର କୃପା ବାରିବିନା ହେବ ନାର ଖାର ଚାତକ ଚାହିଁଲା ପରି ଚାହିଁଅଛି ଚାତକ ଚାହିଁଲା ପରି ଚାହିଁଅଛି କରୁଣା ବାରିରୁ ଟୋପାଏ ପାଇଁ କରୁଣା ବାରିରୁ ଟୋପାଏ ପାଇଁ ଫୁଲଟିଏ ହୋଇ ଫୁଟିଛି ଠାକୁର ତୁମ ଶ୍ରୀପୟରେ ଲୋଟିବା ପାଇଁ ବାସନାହି ବୋଲି ଦିଅ ନାହିଁ ଠେଲି ବାସନାହି ବୋଲି ଦିଅ ନାହିଁ ଠେଲି ମିନତି ଶ୍ରୀପଦେ करे गोसाई मिनती श्रीपदे करे गोसाई
बंधन मोचन लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी सजा फुटबस कुसुमाञ्जलि सजा फुटबस कुसुमाञ्जलि और बुझि श्री चरणी और बुझि श्री चरणी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी केउं मंत्री तुम अर्चना करिबी किछि मोते जଣା नाही केउं मंत्री तुम अर्चना करिबी किछि मोते जଣା नाही तुम महानाम महामंत्रायिका तुम महानाम महामंत्रायिका एतिकी जानिछि साई एतिकी जानिछि साई तुम्हारी आशीष दानी तुम्हारी आशीष दानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी क्यों जानी प्रभु तुमको जानिबी से विद्या जाना मोरा क्यों जानी प्रभु तुमको जानिबी से विद्या जाना मोरा एतिकी मातारा जानिछि हे नाथ एतिकी मातारा जानिछि हे नाथ तुमे मो सर्वस्व चिरा तुमे मो सर्वस्व चिरा अपासुराय जीवनी अपासुराय जीवनी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी আজি শুভ लगानी तुम पीरा प्रीति मो जणा किंतु अनुभवे जाहा तुम पीर प्रीति मो जन किंतु अनुभवे जहा अंतहीन वीरा हरा अग्निताप अंतहीन वीरा हरा अग्निताप कि जलाई पारे निया कि जलाई पारे निया प्रेम पुलकित प्राणे प्रेम पुलकित प्राणे আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি स्थूल सूक्ष्म भेद टूटाई ममनु देखाई आलोक पथ स्थूल सूक्ष्म भेद टूटाई ममनु देखाई आलोक पथ तुम प्रेम भासे बांधी रखी था तुम प्रेम भासे बांधी रखी था मागुछि बसारी हाथ मागुछि बसारी हाथ देया सारा चराणी देया सारा चराणी আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি सजा फुटाबास कुसुमांजली सजा फुटाबास कुसुमांजली और बुझी श्री चरणी और बुझी श्री चरणी আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি আজি শুভ লগনি
Joy, Nigam Upadesh. Faith is the divine eye. I repeatedly tell you to have faith only on Gurudev. Nothing more is required. To just see whether I can accomplish my holy desire. If I get 5 youths of glowing faith as the associates of my work, I can flow the stream of new spiritual upheaval in the entire world with the help of these 5 young men, imbued with unshakable faith, and deep quest for truth. Only thing needed is vitality as well as firm and unwavering faith. You lose faith even before entering the field of work. In many occasions, you become weak, but faith strengthens man's heart and makes it firm as rock. Only that believer achieves success, surpassing all insurmountable obstacles. The hope of a believer is not easily shattered. This much I can say. Whatever path you may adopt, two divine properties, Shraddha and Vishwas, are essential. Otherwise, how can you gain strength in heart? If you are not inspired by faith, you will roam in the sprawling darkness and despair. Faith is man's bright divine eye. Lord Krishna endowed Arjuna with the divine eye. It means that Arjuna acquired fabulous power from complete faith. Only by virtue of his faith, Arjuna could accomplish such great tasks in one life. When he gained unwavering faith, he could see his path quite clearly. Therefore, the acquisition of unshakable and firm faith is the real thing in one's life. What I have realized has strengthened my faith that man can easily be led to a great height by observing very small things. I have accepted some precious sayings as the seed of development of life. To believe and live, you will then find out how wonderful results come out of it. When one depends completely and sincerely on Sri Gurudev, one attains perfection. Know it as the eternal and absolute truth. If you have no power and interest in any sadhana, you leave unto me everything with all your heart, or surrender completely to me in all respects. If you love me a bit, you will attain everything. Jai Guru.
जय गुरु आम आश्रम मंदिर किए सिद्धि भाई कि संजय भाई अच्छा टे कैमेरा को बागे रखु किए स्थापना फोकस करूँ सुभाष भाई मेसेज पठाई आपने पाऊन कहीदे टे सी कहले देखिले ठाकुर पाखे ठाकुर आगे मैं ठाकुर ठीक फोकस थी सप्ताह सेसन में बर्तमान पुणी चेंज हो साइड हो किए भाई टे कैमेरा को फोकस कर दें जय गुरु
Jai Guru. Minutes of last session. Jai Guru Nirajan Saraswata Sangha Puri, America Saraswata Sangha 797 Sangha Puja report. Date January 9, 2022. Time 7:15 AM to 8:45 AM Eastern Time. First session 9:45 AM to 11:55 AM Eastern Time. Second session. Paliya, Shilpi, Sangeetama, Bhakta Bhai and Sunil Bhai. Adivasi Puja date January 8, 2022. Adivasi Puja was held in the Asana Mandira at 7 PM Eastern Time. Links to the attendance sheet is available on Sangha website. First session 7:15 AM to 8:45 AM. The morning session of the puja started at 7:50 AM with the singing of Pratikya song, Emana Mandire Sadai Rakhu, and Bhagava Raijara Bhagava Thakura respectively by Rashmi and Sita Deva. During this time, all other Bhais Mahas joined puja at NSM as well as via AMSAS teleconference. At 7:30 AM, Samajit Bhai offered Arati to Sri Thakura. After Arati, Vishwajit Bhai sang Vandana and Stotra Vandana along with other Bhais and Mahas. Brother Bhai led reading of Parichaya Patra, special prayer for COVID-19 pandemic, Samvedana Prarthana, and Asana Mandira Nitya Puja Prarthana. Then Vishwa Bhai and Vrindavan Bhai read Sangha Sevaka Series 34, Part 3, Vandana, Prarthana and Prarthana Karikapati. From this passage, we learned that a true devotee should always believe in Thakura in both favorable and unfavorable times. Then Diktima read verse 76 from Sri Sri Guruvida. Following that, Shivandu Bhai invited Sri Sri Thakura for Balya Bhuga and all Bhais, Mahas and young aspirants for Balya Prasad and to attend the second session of Sangha Puja. The first session of Puja was concluded with Jai Guru Mahanama Kirtana. After the first session, Bhoga was offered to Sri Sri Thakur. Then Bhais, Mahas and young aspirants had Balya Prasad. The second session of the Puja started at 9:45 AM with singing Abhana song. Subhendu Bhai and Devashish Bhai sang Darasana Diya Prabhu and Thare Banshi Bajao Kanhi respectively. The contents of the Natya Mandira was opened after the singing of Vandana Mochana by all devotees. Ivani Mahajan sang Vandana Gena Sundar Tava. After this, Priyambadamma read the impact of Guna from Nigam of Dasa. We discussed about Sattva, Raja and Tamaguna. We discussed that doing Satsanga, reading Sadgrantha and listening to Sri Gurudeva's advice will help gaining faith. And faith is an important aspect in the journey of spiritual purpose. Sonali Ma read the minutes of the last Sangha Puja. Then Sapneswar Bhai, Sarthak Bhai read Acharya Prashana. Then Vishwajit Bhai, Vinay Bhai, Smita Bhai Ma, Prabhakar Bhai did Charana, followed by 2 minutes of silent prayer for Samabandhu Bhai. Kyana Bhai sang Prarthana Sangita, Jivana Bandhu Etiki Kadiva. This was followed by a question and answer session. The young aspirant session started with Prarthana Sangha Shreya. Then Shreya Ma took the attendance of young aspirants and led the discussion for YA session. After the young aspirant discussion, Shilpi, Sangita Ma, Bhaktabhai and Shivabhai shared their feelings towards Sri Thakura through Bhavabhini Masava. Then Bhaktabhai invited Sri Thakur Maharaj for Madhyana Mugha Nidhi Puja. Then Rajabhai invited Sri Thakur Mahal Bhais and young aspirants to annual day puja to be held on 16 January 2022. Then Vrindavan Bhai invited Sri Thakur's Mahal Bhais and young aspirants to the next Sangha Puja to be held on 23rd Jan 2022. After that, Sangita Ma prayed for forgiveness for any mistake in the seva during the puja. The session was concluded with the Jai Prarthana sung by Nihal Bhai, followed by Jaguru Namakirtana and Pranam, after which Arthana was closed. Vishwajit Bhai took the attendance of all Bhais and Mahas present during the puja. Then Bhoga was offered to Sri Thakur, followed by Prasad Sevana by all Bhais, Mahas and young aspirants. Sri Thakur Charanakshita, Shilpi, Sangita Ma, Bhaktabhai and Shivan.
Chapter 4. Mameva je prapadyante maya batang tarantite. आश्रम बाटीर बहिरंगन दिगरे बेस सुप्रशस्त गोटे घर एही घर को भीतर को स्वच्छंदर यातायात करा जाए। समागत भद्र महातगण एवं भक्त शिष्यगण को एही घरे ठाकुर दर्शन दान करती। शास्त्रालोचना तत्वकथा एवं संकीर्तन आदि अनुष्ठान एही गृह ही हुए। बृहत बहिर्गृहर यह गोटे अंश। प्रत्येक सायंकाल ठाकुर एही गृह गोटे आराम केदारे उपवेशन करती। आज संध्यारे से एही घरे आसी बसिले। भक्तगण चारि पाखरे घेरी बसिले। मु सेमानक सहित एक पार्श्व स्थान ग्रहण कली। घरटी धूप झुणा गंधरे महकी देव मंदिर भाव धारण कला। भक्तगण स्व स्व कथा कहवाक लगिले एवं ठाकुर आनंदे नाना विषय आलोचना करने लगे एवं सुबृहत फुकारे सुगंध ताम्रकूट पान करने लगे। यही पुण्य मुहूर्त जेपरी एक अनिर्वचनीय आनंद धारा खेली जाउथिला। समस्ते भावरे मतुआला ठाकुर आनंद विभोर। आचार्य देव मते हठात पचारे तुमर विवाह होईछि? मु ससंकोचे कहली आज्ञा हाँ। से विषन्न भाव निकटवर्ती जन भक्त को लक्ष्य कर कहले अरे विवाह करिछि। मते पुणी पचारे तुमर छुआ पिला होइछन्ति? मु भीत भाव अपराधी भली कहली आज्ञा हाँ। से आहुरी चिंतित हो कहि उठिले आह पुओ भी होइछि रे। एहा परे बहुत समय नीरव होई अवस्थान करिया लगिले। सारा घरटी एक बार नीरव निस्तब्ध भाव धारण कला। भीत अपराधी भली मु नीरव अपेक्षा करिया लगिली। से दिन विशेष कौन कथा है नहीं। क्रमे क्रमे भक्तगण ठाकुर चरण धूली नहीं प्रस्थान कले। मुझे उठी बाहर को आसली। ठाकुर भी आसन त्याग कर अंतर्बाटी प्रवेश कले। शुक्ल चतुर्दशी तिथि हेमंतर परिपूर्ण चंद्र सुस्निग्ध आलोक प्लावन गगन पवन भसाई नहीं जाऊँगी। आश्रम बाटी जेपरी आलोक मध्य डूबी आनंद आत्मविस्मृत हो आपना को भूली विभूम ध्यान निमज्जित रही अछि। मु भी कम अभिभूत होई नहीं। बाहर मन मताणिया निशानाथक अपूर्व मायाजाल विस्तार आउ हृदय मो हृदयनाथ प्रेम प्रसार इंद्रजल परी अस्वाभाविक भाव ही मते मुग्ध करुला। कि मधुर भाषा, कि हस हस मुख, कि सस्नेह व्यवहार जेपरी केते जन्म जन्मांतर आपणार। मते विषय जड़ित संसारबद्ध देखि कि व्यथा सबू मते जुगपद विस्मय आनंद विभोर करुला कि महाभाग्यवान मु एक आनंद राज्य देव राज्य आसी उपस्थित होई अछि। चिंतार अतीत स्वप्नर अतीत अदृष्ट पूर्व यही देव मानव मते आकर्षण करुअछंती। देह मन प्राण शिथिल होई आसुअछि। पुलक शिहरण देह मृदु मृदु कंपुअछि। कि आनंद संसार दे दावदग्ध मु विषय विषय जर्जरित मु काम वासना कलुषित मु आज केउठी केउ एक आनंद लोक को आसीअछि। धन्य मोर दग्ध अदृष्ट जोंथरे एते सुख भी लेखा आथिला। एही भावरे नाना चिंतारे बहु समय मग्न रही परे रात्रि में प्रसाद ग्रहण करी निद्रा देवी आश्रय ग्रहण कले। भाई यही रखी जय गुरु।
Jai Guru. I am about to summarize this story. So this is a story about Surendra Mohan Das Gupta has arrived in Dhaka ashram for the first day, and after hearing about Thakura from his friend Govinda, he arrived in the ashram. He is describing this experience of how he the Dhaka ashram where Thakura sits and where all the devotees surround him, listening to his divine his message, and he's sitting in one side and waiting for Thakura to get his Thakura's attention. And Thakura is asking him whether about his family life, whether he has kids, and then when he answers this question, somehow he feels that Thakura may be thinking, if he was a family man and has kids, why is he here? So that may be, this is the kind of the story what we read today is the precursor to the next day, that when he's supposed to get Diksha from Thakura. Actually, the Diksha happened on Wednesday, 1911. So leading to the Diksha, he's experiencing his interactions and his inner voices, the conflicting voices that he is going to have, whether he should get Diksha or not. And then all these surroundings of Dhaka ashram, in that atmosphere, how he's mesmerized almost by experiencing all those things. And so that is the sort of a summary of what we read today. Jai Guru.
जय गुरु भाई। भाई शुभती जय गुरु।
Samskara Pathai. Motherly feeling of householders. This world has a force that attracts. It holds the Prakriti and the Purusha together. That force, the attraction makes the man and woman excited and attracted to each other. In Puranas, this invisible force is called Madana and Manasija. That means that this desire arises from the mind of humans. Because the creation, Purusha Prakriti was formless, they were represented just by an illuminated dot. At the beginning of creation, this all abundantly illuminated atom, Atma, revealed itself as an indistinguishable Nada Bindu. Nada Bindu is the power of Pavuna and Shiva Shakti. The Bindu is the absolute Shiva, and Paraprakriti is the Adya Shakti. Nada Rupa, Adya Shakti Nada Rupa. The Bindu Rupa, Shiva, and Raja Rupa Shakti merged together to create Yadava Rupa Ishvara. From this Ishvara, the whole world was created. So, the Bindu is called Pitru Shakti and the Raja is called Matru Shakti. The creation, prevention, and annihilation of living world is performed due to unification. The male body and the female body of living being get created from the Pitru Shakti and Matru Shakti. These two forces, Shakti, continuously try to meet each other for their survival. In this way, both increase their radiance and strength. There are two regions of the between of the male and female. One is beauty of creation and other is pleasure. One is the anonymous with the pleasure. But true pleasure is outright and end with pleasure. By bringing together Pitru Shakti and Matru Shakti through sadhana leads to in the human life. At that primary attachment in the physical
ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ଆମର ଗୋଟେ ଚରଣ ଅଛି ନେକ୍ସଟ। ଆମର ଯେତେବେଳେ ପ୍ରଥମ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ ହେଇଥିଲା ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମର ରବି ଭାଇଙ୍କର ଆଦିତ୍ୟ ଭାଇଙ୍କର ମା ଉର୍ମିଳା ମା ଆସିକି ଆମକୁ ଜଏନ୍ କରିଥିଲେ। ସମସ୍ତ ଆମର ସୌଭାଗ୍ୟ ହେଇଛି ମାଙ୍କୁ ଦେଖିବାକୁ। ସେ ବିଷୟରେ ବିସ୍ତୃତ ଟିକେ କହିବେ। ତେଣୁ ଏନିୱେ ଆପଣମାନେ ତ ପାଇଥିବେ ଆମସା ସେ ମେସେଜ ମା ଆମର ଗୀତା ମା ପଠେଇଥିଲେ ମେସେଜ ଯେ ମା ଚାଲିଗଲେ। ତେଣୁ ମାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଟିକେ ଆମେ ସ୍ମୃତିଚାରଣ କରିବା, ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ପ୍ରାର୍ଥନା କରିବା ତାଙ୍କ ଆତ୍ମାର ଶାନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ମଙ୍ଗଳ ନିମିତ୍ତ। ସୋ ଫର୍ଷ୍ଟ ଆଇ ରିକ୍ୱେଷ୍ଟ ବିଶ୍ୱଜିତ ଭାଇ ଟିକେ କହିବେ ମାଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ, ତାପରେ ଆମେ ଯିବା ଆଦିତ୍ୟ ଭାଇ ଲାଇନ୍ ଅଛନ୍ତି, ତାପରେ ଗୀତା ମା, ତାପରେ ଭାଇ ବିଶ୍ୱଜିତ ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ଆମର ଖବର ପାଇଲେ ଥରେ ଗୀତା ମା ମେସେଜ ପଠେଇଥିଲେ ସେ ବିଷୟରେ। ଆଉ ଶୁଣିଲା ପରେ ମନେ ପଡ଼ିଗଲା ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଆମର ଯେମିତି ସିଧା ହେଇଥିଲା ଯାହା ସବୁ ସେ ମା କେମିତି ଆମ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ କେତେ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରିବ୍ୟୁଟ୍ ଥିଲା ସେ ବିଷୟରେ କହିବି। ସେ ଆଦରଣୀୟ ଉର୍ମିଳା ତ୍ରିପାଠୀ ମାଙ୍କ ସହ ଆମର ପ୍ରଥମ ଦେଖା ହେଇଥିଲା 2002 ମସିହା। ଆମର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରଥମ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ ହେଇଥିଲା ଆମ ସଂଘର ସେଟା ଅଗଷ୍ଟ ଏଣ୍ଡରେ ସେପ୍ଟେମ୍ବର ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ୱିକ୍ ହେଇଥିଲା 2002। ଆଉ ମା ଆସିଥିଲେ। ସେ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଆମର ରବି ଭାଇଙ୍କର ମା ଆଉ ତାଙ୍କର ଆଲୋକ ଆଉ ଅଂଶୁଲ ତାଙ୍କ ନାତି ଦି ଜଣକ। ତେଣୁ ସବୁ ଆମ ସଂଘ ସମସ୍ତେ ଅଛନ୍ତି। ଆଉ ସେ ଦେଖା ହେଲା ପରେ ସେ ତା ମାଙ୍କର ହସ ହସ ମୁହଁ, ସେ ସ୍ନେହପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ବ୍ୟବହାର ଆଉ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କର କଥା ଆଉ ବାଣୀ ସେଇ ସମୟରେ ଆମ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିଥିଲେ। ଆମର ଯୋଉ ଆଲୋଚନାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ତାଙ୍କର କିନ୍ତୁ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପ୍ରତି ତାଙ୍କର ଯାହା ଅନୁଭୂତି ହେଇଥିଲା ସେ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀରେ, ସେ ସମୟରେ ମୁଁ ସବୁ ନୋଟ୍ କରୁଥାଏ। ସେ ସମୟରେ ଯାହା ସବୁ ମୋର ରେକର୍ଡ ସବୁ ସେ ମୋର ଯାହା ମନେ ପଡୁଛି ସବୁ ସେଇଟା ସେ ପ୍ରକାଶ କରିଥିଲେ। ତାଙ୍କର ଭାବ ବିହ୍ୱଳ ହେଇକି ସେ ଠାକୁର କେମିତି ସୁଖ ପାଇକି ତାଙ୍କର ଯାହା ସବୁ ଉନ୍ନତି ସେଇଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ଜଣେଇଥିଲେ। ଯାହା ସବୁ ସେ ଚାହିଁଥିଲେ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ସମୟରେ ସେ ପ୍ରକାଶ କରିଥିଲେ। ତାଙ୍କ ସବୁ ପାଇଛନ୍ତି ସେ ତାଙ୍କ ଜୀବନରେ ସବୁ ହେଇଛି। ଆଉ ଅନେକ କୃପା ସେଇଟା ଆମର ସେ ସମୟରେ ପ୍ରକାଶ କରିଥିଲେ। ଆହୁରି ମଧ୍ୟ ସେଇଟା ଯଦି ପ୍ରଥମ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ ଥିଲା ଆମର ସେ ସମୟରେ ଆମେ ମାନେ କିଛି ଜାଣିନଥାଉ ଠାକୁର କେମିତି ସେବା ହବ, କେମିତି ପ୍ରଥମ ମାନେ ଯୋଉ ଆମର ସବୁ ସମସ୍ତେ ନୂଆ ଭକ୍ତ ଭାଇ ମା ସମସ୍ତେ ପ୍ରାୟ ଆସିଥାଉ, ଏକାଠି ହେଇଥାଉ ବହୁତ 40 ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କୁ ମିଶିକି ସେ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀରେ ସେଠି କେମିତି ଆମର ଭୋଗ ରନ୍ଧନ ମା ମାନଙ୍କୁ କେମିତି ସେମାନେ ସବୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ କଥାବାର୍ତ୍ତା କହିକି ସେ ଶୁଦ୍ଧପୃତ ହୋଇକି କେମିତି ଭୋଗ ରନ୍ଧନ କରାଯାଇପାରିବ ସେ ମଧ୍ୟ ମା ମାନଙ୍କୁ ସେଟା ସବୁ କହିକି ଶୁଣେଇଥିଲେ, ଜଣେଇଥିଲେ ତାଙ୍କର ଏକ୍ସପିରିଏନ୍ସ କରିକି କେମିତି ଅନୁପ୍ରାଣିତ କରିଥିଲେ। ଆଉ ଏସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ଆମର ଚିର ଅଭୁଲା ସ୍ମୃତି ରହିଛି ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ। ଆମେ ମଧ୍ୟ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ସେଥିପାଇଁ କୃତଜ୍ଞ। ଆଉ ସେତେବେଳେ ସିଏ ଗୀତ ଆମର ସେତେବେଳେ ଗୀତ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ସେମିତି ଗୀତ ଗାଇବା ମଧ୍ୟ ଲିନା ମା କହୁଥିଲେ ସେ ସମୟରେ। ସେ ଗୀତ ମଧ୍ୟ ଗାଇବାକୁ ବହୁତ ସୁଖ ପାଉଥିଲେ। ସେଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ସମୟରେ ଆମକୁ ଯାହା କରିଥିଲେ। ଆଉ ଆମର ସମସ୍ତ ଭାଇ ମାନଙ୍କ ସେ ସମୟରେ ଆସିକି ସେ ସ୍ନେହ ଆଦର ସହିତ ମିଶିଥିଲେ। ଆଉ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଥିଲୁ ଆମର ପରିବାର ଥିଲୁ ଆମେ ଷ୍ଟାମଫୋର୍ଡରେ କନେକ୍ଟିକଟ। ସେତେବେଳେ ସେ ରବି ଭାଇ ରହୁଥିଲେ ବଷ୍ଟନ। ସେତେବେଳେ ସେ ତାଙ୍କ ମାଆଙ୍କୁ ଆଣିକି ଆମର ସେଇ ଆପାର୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ ପାଖରେ ଆସିଥିଲେ। ତେଣୁ ମତେ ମାନେ ଆମର ମଧ୍ୟ ସେମିତି ତାଙ୍କୁ ଟିକେ ସେବା କରିବାର ସୁଯୋଗ ମିଳିଥିଲା। ଆଉ 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 ତାଙ୍କର ପାଇଁ ଦେହ ତ୍ୟାଗ ପରେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ଶ୍ରୀଚଣ୍ଡ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ପ୍ରାର୍ଥନା କରୁଛୁ, ତାଙ୍କ ଆତ୍ମାର ସତ୍ୟ ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ।
ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ଆଦିତ୍ୟ ଭାଇ ଅଛନ୍ତି ଲାଇନରେ?
ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ ଭାଇ।
ଜୟ ଭାଇ, ଟିକେ କୁହନ୍ତୁ ମାଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ। ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ।
ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ବହୁ ପିଲାଦିନୁ ବହୁ ଆମ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ କହି ଆସିଛି ଆମେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପିଲା, ଆମ ଘରେ ଏସବୁ ହେଇପାରିବନି। ଠାକୁର ଆମର ଅଛନ୍ତି, ଆମର କେହି ଅପକାର କରିପାରିବେନି। ଠାକୁରଙ୍କର ଯେତିକି ସବୁ ଉପଦେଶ ବାଣୀ ଆମକୁ ନିତିଦିନ ତା ଆମେ ବୁଝିବା ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମକୁ କହି ଆସିଥାଏ। ପିଲାଦିନୁ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ନିର୍ଭରତା, ସେ ଜିନିଷ ଗୁଡାକ ବୋଉଠୁ ପାଇଛି। ଆମେ 5 ଭାଇ ଭଉଣୀ, ମୁଁ ସବୁଠୁ ସାନ। ମୋର କଲେଜ, ହାଇସ୍କୁଲ, କଲେଜ, ଇଞ୍ଜିନିୟରିଂ କଲେଜ ସବୁ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ। ମୋର ପ୍ରଥମ ଚାକିରି ବି ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ପାଖରେ ଭଦ୍ରକରେ। ତ ନନା ବୋଉଙ୍କ ସାଥିରେ ମୁଁ ସଦାବେଳେ ସଂଘ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ ଚାରିଆଡ଼େ ଯାଏ। ମୋର ମନେ ଅଛି ଯେତେବେଳେ ନନା ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ ଯାଇପାରନ୍ତିନି, ନନା କହନ୍ତି ଯେ ତାଙ୍କ ନାଁରେ ଗୋଟେ ଡେଲିଗେଟ୍ ଫି କରିକି ଆଣିବା ପାଇଁ। ତ ପରମ୍ପରା ଭାବରେ ସେଇଟା ଆମର ଚାଲିଥାଏ। ତ ଯେହେତୁ ଆମେ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ଅଛୁ, ମାନେ ଆମର ହାଇସ୍କୁଲ ପରଠୁ ମତେ ନନା ବୋଉ ସଦାବେଳେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କର ଜନ୍ମୋତ୍ସବକୁ କୁଟୀର ନେଇଯାଆନ୍ତି। ଆଉ କୁଟୀର ଆମେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ଦର୍ଶନ କରୁ ଆସୁ। ଆଉ ଭିତରେ ମୁଁ ଆମେରିକା ପଳେଇ ଆସିଛି। ଆଉ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ଯାଏ ଆଉ ଠାକୁର କୁଟୀର ଯାଏ, ସେଥିରେ ବାହାଘର ମଧ୍ୟ ହେଇଯାଇଛି। ତେଣୁ ମୋର ଶ୍ୱଶୁର ଘର ବି ପୁରୀ। ଶ୍ୱଶୁର ଘର ସମସ୍ତେ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ମୁଁ ଯିବି ପୁରୀ, କାରଣ ଟିକେ କୁଟୀର ଯିବାର ଅଛି। ମୁଁ ସଦାବେଳେ ଯେତେବେଳେ କୁଟୀର ଯାଏ, ବୋଉଙ୍କୁ ଆସିକି ଜଣାଏ ଯେ ମୁଁ କୁଟୀର ଯାଇଥିଲି। ମୁଁ ଯାଇଥିଲି 2019 ଜୁଲାଇ ମାସରେ। ଆଉ ତାପରେ କୋଭିଡ ଯୋଗୁଁ ଯାଇପାରୁନି। ମାଙ୍କ ଦେହ ଆସ୍ତେ ଆସ୍ତେ ଟିକେ ଖରାପ ହେଇଯାଇଛି। ଏଇ 21 ମସିହା ଡିସେମ୍ବରରେ ଗଲି। ଆଉ ମତେ ଆମ ଶ୍ୱଶୁର ଘର କହିଲେ, ତମେ ପୁରୀ ଆସିବ, କୁଟୀର ଯିବ। ସେଇ ସମୟରେ ମତେ ଲାଗିଲା ମୁଁ ତ ବୋଉଙ୍କ ଦେହ ଖରାପ ଅଛି, ଯାଉଛି, ମାନେ ସବୁ ପାଇଁ ମତେ ବାଧ୍ୟ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। ଏଭଳିଆ ଭାବିଛି, ମନ କଥା ମନରେ ଥାଇ ଯାଏ। ମୋର ଆସିବା ଦିନ ଫ୍ଲାଇଟ୍ ଅଛି ସନ୍ଧ୍ୟାବେଳେ, ବୋଉ ସକାଳୁ ଚାଲିଗଲେ। ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ବ୍ୟତିବ୍ୟସ୍ତ, କଣ କରିବୁ କଣ ନାହିଁ। ସେତେବେଳେ ଭାଇ କଲେ ବୋଉଙ୍କୁ ନେଲା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଟିକେ କୁଟୀର ନେଇଯିବ। ଆମେ କୁଟୀର ଆସିକି ପହଞ୍ଚିଲୁ। ସେତେବେଳେ ମୋର ରିଅଲାଇଜେସନ ହେଲା, ବୋଉ କହିଲେ, ଆରେ ତୁ ଫେରିଯିବୁ, ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ଦର୍ଶନ ନ କରିକି ଫେରିଯିବୁ ଯେମିତି।
जय गुरु दीप्ता माटी ଯଦି ଅଛନ୍ତି ଲାଇନରେ କୁହନ୍ତୁ ଟିକେ।
ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ଆଉ ଆଜି ମୋର ସୌଭାଗ୍ୟ ଯେ ମତେ ଗୋଟେ ଚାନ୍ସ ମିଳିଛି ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ସେବା ଆଉ ବୋଉଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ କହିବାକୁ, ଶାଶୁଙ୍କ ବିଷୟରେ କହିବା ପାଇଁ। ମୁଁ ତ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଜାଣିଲି ବାହାର ପରେ, ତେଣୁ ମୋର ଟିକେ ମୋର ଭାବ ମଧ୍ୟ ଟିକେ କମ୍ ହବ, କିନ୍ତୁ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ପାଇଁ କ୍ରେଡିଟ୍ ଦେବି, କାରଣ ସେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ଆମକୁ ସବୁ ଇଣ୍ଟ୍ରୋଡ୍ୟୁସ କରେଇଛନ୍ତି। ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ବାହା ହେଇକି ସବୁ ତାଙ୍କ ଘରକୁ ଆସିଛୁ, ତାଙ୍କ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ଜାଣିବାକୁ ପାଇଛୁ। ଆଉ ସେ ମଧ୍ୟ କେତେ ଥରେ ମୋର ମନେ ପଡୁଛି କେତେ ଗୁଡେ ସେଣ୍ଟେନ୍ସ କହିବାର। ସେଥିରେ କହିଲେ, କାରଣ ଆମେ ନୂଆ ନୂଆ ଆସିଥିଲା ବେଳେ ଆମେ ଏତେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ଜାଣିନଥିଲୁ କିମ୍ବା ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପ୍ରତି ଅନୁପ୍ରାଣିତ ହେଇନଥିଲୁ। ସେଥିରେ କହିଲେ, ଜାଣିଛୁ ଠାକୁର ହଉଛନ୍ତି ସବୁ, ଆଉ ଯୋଉ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ଯେମିତି ଡାକିଲେ ମାନେ ଠାକୁର ତମକୁ ସେଇ ଭାବରେ ଦେଖାଦେବେ। ମାନେ ତମେ ଲକ୍ଷ୍ମୀଙ୍କୁ ଡାକ କି ଫର ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଯୋଉ ଠାକୁର ଗଣେଶଙ୍କୁ ଡାକ, ଠିକ ସେମିତି ତମକୁ ସେଇ ଭାବରେ ହିଁ ଦେଖାଦେବେ। ତେଣୁ ସିଏ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ସବୁରି ମୂଳରେ ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଆମର ଠାକୁର। ମୋର ସେଇ ସେଣ୍ଟେନ୍ସ ଟା ମନେ ଅଛି। ତାପରେ ତ ଏଠିକି ଆସିଥିଲେ, ମୋର ଏତେ କୌଣସି ଜିନିଷ ମନେ ନାହିଁ, କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ହଉଥିଲେ। ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ, ତାଙ୍କ ପ୍ରଥମ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ ଯାଇଥିଲେ, ସେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ହଉଥିଲେ। ଆଉ ସେ କଣ ତିଆରି କରିଥିଲେ ମାନେ କହିଲେ, ମୁଁ କଣ ଗୋଟେ କରିବି, ନିଜେ ସମ୍ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଭାବରେ କରିଥିଲେ। ଯୋଉ ଖଜାନା କଣ ସବୁ ରାତ୍ରି ସାରା ଭାଇ ଆଉ ବୋଉ ମିଶିକି କରିଥିଲେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀ। ସେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସି ହଉଥିଲେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ନାଁ ଶୁଣିବା ପାଇଁ, ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ଗୀତ ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ। ମୋର ଠାକୁରଙ୍କର ସେ ପୁରା ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ତାଙ୍କର ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ନିର୍ଭରତା ଥିଲା। ଆଉ ତାଙ୍କର ମୋର ପର୍ସନାଲ ବେଶୀ କିଛି କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ନାହିଁ, କାରଣ ମୁଁ ତ ଟିକେ ଡିଷ୍ଟାନ୍ସ ରିଲେଟେଡ, ଡିଷ୍ଟାନ୍ସ ନୁହେଁ, ଆଇ ଏମ୍ ନଟ୍ ଦ ଇଏ। କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ବହୁତ ସେୟାର କରୁଥିଲେ ମଧ୍ୟ ମଝିରେ ମଝିରେ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ଟିକେ ସୁବିଧା ପାଆନ୍ତି ମତେ ଏକୁଟିଆ। ଆଉ 2019 ମୁଁ ଯାଇଥିଲି, ଆଉ ସେଠି 2 ଦିନ ତାଙ୍କର ରହିଥିଲି ଶାଶୁଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ। ଆଉ ସେ ସେତେବେଳେ ସେ ଯଦିଓ ଏତେ ଖରାପ ଇଏ ନଥିଲେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଡାକନ୍ତି, ଟିକେ ଖୁଏଇଦଉ ଗୀତା, ଆସନ୍ତୁ ଟିକେ ଖୁଏଇଦଉ ଡାକନ୍ତି। ଆଉ ବସନ୍ତି, ମୁଁ ଯେତେ ସମୟ ବସେ ସବୁ କଥା ଟିକେ ସେୟାର କରନ୍ତି। ଗୋଟେ କଥା, ଯେତେବେଳେ 2019 ଯାଇଥିଲେ, ସେତେବେଳେ ସେ ଟିକେ ତାଙ୍କ ଭଏସ ଜାଣିପଡୁଛି ଟିକେ ସ୍ୟାଡ ଥିଲେ। ମାନେ ସେ କହିଲେ ନନା ପଳେଇଲେଣି, ଆଉ ଏମିତି କହିଲେ ମତେ ଟିକେ ଖରାପ ଲାଗିଲା। ଶୁଣିକି କାହିଁକି ବୋଉ ଏତେ କାହିଁକି ଟିକେ ଡିପ୍ରେସ ହେଇଯାଉଛନ୍ତି, କଣ ସବୁ ତ ଠିକ, କାହିଁକି ଏତେ ଡିପ୍ରେସ ହେଇଯାଉଛନ୍ତି ମୁଁ ଭାବିଲି, କିନ୍ତୁ କିଛି ରିପ୍ଲାଏ କରିନଥିଲି। ମନ ଦୁଃଖ ଟିକେ ଥିଲେ। ତାପରେ 2 ବର୍ଷ ଭିତରେ ଟିକେ ବେଶୀ ଟିକେ ତାଙ୍କର ଟିକେ ଡିଟୋରିଏଟ ହେଇଗଲା। ଆଉ ମୁଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ମୋର ପର୍ସନାଲ ଇଏରେ ମାନେ ଟିକେ ଦବିକି ଥିଲେ, ତେଣୁ ବେଶୀ କିଛି କାହା ସହିତ କଥାବାର୍ତ୍ତା କରୁନଥିଲି। ମତେ ଏବେ when I look back, I think I should have spent more time with her, get to know more about her. ଟିକେ ଖରାପ ଲାଗିଲା ଶୁଣିକି, ଏତେ ଜଲ୍ଦି ସେ ପଳେଇବେ ବୋଲି ଭାବିନଥିଲୁ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଜଲ୍ଦି ପଳେଇଲେ। ଭାବୁଥିଲା ଆଉ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ଦିନ ସ୍ପେଣ୍ଡ କରିକି କିଛି ଆଟଲିଷ୍ଟ କିଛି ବର୍ଷ ସ୍ପେଣ୍ଡ କରିପାରିଥାନ୍ତି ଭାବୁଥିଲି, କିନ୍ତୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦେଖିଲି ବହୁତ really deteriorating situation. So, pandemic aggravated the situation. ଆଉ ଯାହା ହଉ ସେ ଆମକୁ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ବିଷୟରେ ଆମକୁ କହିଛନ୍ତି, ଆମକୁ ଜଣେଇଛନ୍ତି, ଆମକୁ କହିଲେ ଠାକୁର ହଉଛନ୍ତି ଏଭ୍ରିଥିଙ୍ଗ। ଆଉ ତାଙ୍କ ଦ୍ୱାରା ଆମେ ସେତିକି ଉପକୃତ ହେଇଛୁ। ଆଉ ସେ ଯୋଉଠି ସେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପାଖକୁ ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି, କାରଣ ସେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କୁ ବହୁତ ଭଲ ପାଆନ୍ତି, ଆଉ ସେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପାଖକୁ ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି, ତେଣୁ ସେ ଠାକୁର ତାଙ୍କୁ ଆନନ୍ଦରେ ଗ୍ରହଣ କରିଛନ୍ତି। ଆଉ ଭାବୁଛୁ ଯେ ଠାକୁରଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ତାଙ୍କର ଇଏ ଗୁଡାକ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ସ୍ପେଣ୍ଡ କରିବେ। ଆଉ କଣ କହିବି, ଯୋଉଠି ସେ ରହନ୍ତୁ ଖୁସିରେ ରହିଥାନ୍ତୁ, ଏତିକି ରହୁଛି। ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ।
ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ ରବି ଭାଇ।
ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ଜୟ ଗୁରୁ। ମା ତ 2 ତାରିଖ ଦିନ, ବୋଉ 3 ତାରିଖ ଦିନ ପଳେଇଲେ। ମୁଁ गोटे जोड़े विषय कहती जमी आदित्य भाई कहला आम नना बोटू ठाकुर जाचु पिला बेले माँ मानकर बहुत कंट्रीब्यूशन थाए विश्वास जागृत करने मुझे दुईटा इनसीडेंट कहि मुझे 14-15 वर्ष घर पलि आसली बाहर पढ़ी बोली से गोटे कथा कही मत पठे देखे तो पाखे पाखे सदाबले ठाकुर अच्छा तू से भूलि I don't know the significance of it, but that has created a belief system around me. जेतबले कोनसी डर लागे बा कोन लागे मते सेतबले बो कथा मन पड़ी जाए जे अरे हे बो कहि ठाकुर अछंती पाखा पाखा तू काई डरुचु अन्य माने मन आश्चर्य जानती छोट पिलाटा एते एकुटिया हिकरी ए जंगल मु गोटे जगह रोथली जोटा कि बेसी लोक सेठी रहना पिलाटा केमते रहउची आ बो कथाटा केवल मोर से समय मते बहुत साहाय्य करे आ मु कहूची इंसिडेंट जोटा कहूची गोटे मु गोटे रूम रे रहउथली जोटा कि एकुटिया रहउथली तनु घर आसला बेले गोटे दुआर तो खुलले अन्य दुआर गोटे धड़धड़ हो जाए धड़धड़ेला मते डर लागे कारण आम जाचु गोटे यार मु से भावे जे अरे मु को एका रोज आउ जन मन रोचुन तेणु से कौन जीवा आसा कर सिस्टमेटिक क्रिएटेड माने जो फीलिंग से गुड़ाक सब पूरा कंट्रीब्यूशन आउ गोटे छोट कथा कहबी जमी आम तो हाई स्कूल थिला बेले आम सब सुनाबेड़ा रोलु मु हूँ बड़ पुओ आने सब छोट आदित्य भाईटा मोटू बहुत सान नना बहुत सकाल उठिकी पलांती आश्रम आम सब शुई था उठला बेलू कि नथिबो माने ब्रेकफास्ट निजे निजे पिला देकरी आम सब खाया नथिबो तेणु आम यू हैव टू गो टू द आश्रम दैट इज गोटे फोर्स टू गो टू आश्रम तो आम समस्ते मिसिकी जीवु आदित्य भाईटा छोट होता है तेणु गो को खोजे से गो को खोजला बेलू गो हूँ सदा बेले आसला मात्र के से रंधन घर को जाइए रांधुता ठाकुर तेणु से खोजु थाए से रंधन घरटा इज आउट ऑफ लिमिट फॉर द किड्स तेणु से आम सब एपट सेपट हो से बो जो सब भोग बढ़ा हुए से आसती आई कैन सी दी माने आमर जो बो केते समय पर देखा सेटा बहुत खुशी लगे से मुह गुड़ाक मोर मन पड़ जाऊँ टाइम हो गलानी आसी आपण मैंने देखी सब कथा मन रखी मुझे कथबार्ता करे सब आइडेंटिफाई करती स्मिता राय माँ स्मिता भाई माँ गोरा से ना हाँ हम कहली हाँ सी से जो आमर नाटक होता बृंदावन भाई की भल भाव चिन्हती मुझे बृंदावन भाई न से जो गंजी पिंधिकी ना ना हाँ हाँ सी ये समस्त मन रखता मुझे कथबार्ता करे समस्त
जयगुरु पवन
जय गुरु पवन से आपन को से रोल तार मान रखती जयगुरु हो मुझे कह रोच भाई आपन पाखरे मत सुजोग देले बहु विषय टी कहवाकू से मान पाखरे
जयगुरु खाली मुझे दीपद कहना चाहूँगी माँ विषय आप आदित्य भाई गीता माँ भाई कथा शुणिले माने माँ केवल जे ठाकुर मुखी नुहे गुरु निष्ठा सहित पिला माने बो इत्यादि को ठाकुर करेंगे से यथेष चेष्टा कर माने उभय दिग से दायित्व संपादन कर पिला गर्भ धारण कर अभ्यत लाइन अच्छे कहना खराब लगुच डोंट वांट टू एम्बारास हिम आम जो अभ्यास मिसी जानते अभ्यास कौ भाई कौ भाई धरण भाव ठाकुर सागर केमती भाव से अच्छा भाई जो भाई मिशन जानते जो भाया पुओ माँ या तो माँ प्रोग्राम कृतज्ञ भाई जो विशेष कहले जे आमर प्रथम सम्मेलन में माँ किसी डिरेक्शन देते दिग्दर्शन देते केमी पूजा हम गीत इत्यादि भोग रंधा तेणु आम संघ भी माँ कंट्रीब्यूशन रही संघ माँ पाखे कृतज्ञ तेणु माँ तो आज ठाकुर पाखे ठाकुर आउ टे क्लोज हो क्लोज जी क्लोज थे बर्तमान सूक्ष्मतार आहरी ठाकुर पाक चली जाती आम टे समस्ते निज निज जगह ठिया होकर गोटा मिनिट ठाकुर श्रीचरण माँ शांति एवं मंगल ठाकुर प्रार्थना करवा एवं तापर निविष्ट चित्त साइलेंटली जय गुरु जप करवा समस्त निज जगह ठिया हूँ जय गुरु आरंभ करवा जय गुरु जय गुरु वृंदावन भाई
जय गुरु जय गुरु मोते से राई जाकू नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मोते से राई जाकू नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मनो विमान स्वार्थ कामना मनो विमान स्वार्थ कामना माया मोह घेरा विरह वेदना माया मोह घेरा विरह वेदना देउठी न करे बंदी देउठी न करे बंदी तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मोते से राई जकू नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मोते से राई जकू नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी ए भव जलधि माया भौरी रे बुढ़ी मुमलिनी ए भव जलधि माया भौरी रे बुढ़ी मुमलिनी हे माया संसारे बंचिबा मरिबा समान हेला जीवन न बुझी हेलारे बीताइछि दिन न बुझी हेलारे बीताइछि दिन निराशारे कांदी कांदी निराशारे कांदी कांदी तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी खाली तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मोते से राइजको नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मोते से राइजको नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी खाली तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी से कूले जीवाकू दिशो नहीं पथ दिगंधारुआ से कूले जीवाकू दिशो नहीं पथ दिगंधारुआ के कूले लगाओ कृपान बहे भवन उरिया के कूले लगाओ कृपान बहे भवन उरिया दुनिया हाटरू जहाँ मुकिणीछि दुनिया हाटरू जहाँ मुकिणीछि घाट मूल पाई सबुअर पुछि घाट मूल पाई सबुअर पुछि दुनिया हाटरू जहाँ मुकिणीछि दुनिया हाटरू जहाँ मुकिणीछि घाट मूल पाई सबुअर पुछि घाट मूल पाई सबुअर पुछि दास पड़े रखछन्ति दास पड़े रखछन्ति तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मोते से राइजको नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी मोते से राइजको नहीं जाओ तुम प्रेम डोरे तुम प्रेम डोरे बांधी दास पड़े रखछन्ति दास पड़े रखछन्ति
जय गुरु आज हमर सकाळ संघ सेवक टिके डिस्कशन करिबा we may not have lot of time for question and answer, but if you have couple of them we can definitely pick it up. आज आरंभ कले प्रार्थनाकारी प्रति जे काय मन वाक्य द्वारा प्रार्थना करा जाए खाली मुहरे कहले हुएनी मन भितरे आमर कार्य से परिणत करिया पड़े एठी आमर ए प्रबंध रे कहैछि जे ज्ञानी मानकर किसी प्रार्थना न थाए कहीं से निजक ब्रह्मस्वरूप देखते क्या प्रार्थना करेंगे जोगी मानकर निज बल उपर बहुत भरोसा थाए मु आज प्राणायाम करी योग ध्यान करी ध्यान करी समाधि पहुंचीबी केवल भक्त मानकर प्रार्थनाटा दिखाई प्रार्थना द्वारा से सबकि पाइपर मैंने जहाँ विचार करके जोग करके पाइबे ये खाली प्रार्थना करके पाई जाई पारे गोटे जिनस बहुत स्ट्रेस देइचंती भक्ति रे विश्वास जदि विश्वास थिब ठीक ठीक विश्वास तांको ऊपर रहिले ठाकुर कहते ब्रह्मात्मा भगवान अवस्था लाभ हो जन्म लाभ हम आउ 10-20 जन्म करिया पड़ोनी तापरे यही प्रार्थनार अंतराय केतोड़े वृत्ति कथा आलोचना कराई आम बाट को जाई पारलेनी पढ़ा समय हो गला विशेषकर लोभ वृत्ति उपरे बहुत स्ट्रेस दिखाई आउे विभिन्न प्रकार दु तीन गल्प ताधे अच्छी गोटे जिनस से कहते जे मनरे कौन सी जिनस आहरण करने को इच्छा करवाटा जोटा सेटा हला लोभ लोभर विपरीत दान ता कथा लिखाई किंतु लोभर विपरीतटा है दान गोटे पर्टिकुलर जिनस लिखिं जे केत जन देखा जाए आश्रम गोटे जिनस देखले गले जिनसा आम घरे हंता कि बेले नहीं जाती सेटा है सब बड़ घृत अपराध से मन में आसबनी खाली ता नुहे आप जदि योगी गुरु पढ़े ताधे जो आम जम नियम दुईट जिनस देखाई गोटे अच्छी अस्तेय बोली सत्य अहिंसा अहिंसा सत्य अस्तेय ब्रह्मचर्य अपरिग्रह 5टी है जम अस्तेय को डिफाइन कर परद्रव्य ग्रहणर इच्छा सुधा जो मन में उदित हम से जाए अस्तेय साधनाटा हम अस्तेय साधना हो गले लोभर कौन पाख सीमा माड़बनी सेटा सब मन रखि कौन जिनस देखिले चोरी करने कथा नुह देखिले बलपूर्वक नहीं जी दैट इज बैड you all know that especially living in this country that is into our culture think about it if you see something and you say I want to have this then stay ho gala अस्तेय हला नहीं तेणु सेटा को जदि आम टिके मन रखा ताहले लोभवृत्तिटा भी पलैब लोभवृत्ति रही अस्तेय प्रतिष्ठित कले कौन हुए ना सब रत्न संसार लाभ हो जाए सो थिंक अबाउट इट इफ यू वांट टू बी रियली रिच practice अस्तेय well I'm just saying it a little bit jokingly थोड़े अस्तेय प्रतिष्ठा है गले आपन को किसी दरकार पड़िबनी anyway any questions you got couple of minutes exactly 2 minutes I am not hearing any questions so while on the topic of अस्तेय तार आउ गोटे दिग है अपरिग्रह अपरिग्रहटी हूँ दी जन जाक मिसिक था जम जो दीटी जिनस अच्छा अपरिग्रह है देह रक्षा करने आम जी दरकार से आम रखा अतिरिक्त जहाँ रहा परित्याग करवा ना अपरिग्रह मोट कथा है लोभ परित्याग करेंगे से अपरिग्रह जिते जहाँ एमर यहाँ दरकार से दरकार गोटे घरटे दरकार गोटे गाड़ीटे दरकार आउ कौन आमेजन मिलूँ सेल अच्छी किणीदे इत्यादि इत्यादि कले अपरिग्रह है ना कौन सी जिनस आमर अतिरिक्त मानने जीवनटा रहा जी दरकार गोटे दीटा सिंपल ड्रेस पटा दरकार सकाल सन्ध्या टे ठाकुर भोग देकी प्रसाद टे पाइबा दरकार ता छड़ा आउ केमती रही कौन आशा ताधे भी लोभटा चली जाए अस्तेय अपरिग्रह ये जोड़े जिनस जदि आपण मैंने प्रैक्टिस करने को चेष्टा करेंगे सांगे सांगे तो हुए नहीं धीरे धीरे तार लोभटा चलीज लोभटा चलीगले ये जो आज कहले भक्ति और विश्वास सेटा टिके बढ़िबो से केते गुडा वृत्ति थिले से वृत्तिटा जमा हेल्प करेनी से सब बढ़िबारे सो इटा हला हमर टाइम हो गला बर्तमान सो विल स्टॉप हियर जी संगीत प्रार्थना संगीत कहार अछि मोर पाखे प्रोग्राम ता नहीं श्रेयसी बोधे श्रेयसी आई थिंक या प्लीज गो अहेड श्रेयसी जय गुरु
जय गुरु तब विनोदिया भक्तवत्सल ज्ञान भक्तर प्रीति प्राणति तुम भक्तर चिर आराध्य तुम भक्तर गति भुगति भाव विनोदिया भक्तवत्सल ज्ञान भक्तर प्रीति प्राणति तुम भक्तर चिर आराध्य तुम्हें भक्तर कति मुकति किदे तो सीबी क्यों धन दे जहाँ देखे सबू तुम्हारी गोसाई अखिनीर मोर एकांत संबल तुमरे विपद जुगल मंडी देई तो सीधी तुमको नहीं मोर धन संपत्ति तुम्हें भक्तर चिराराध्य तुम्हें भक्तर कति मुकति भगवत प्रभु सबरी इंद्रा अपर दासिया बड़ी नरिया भगत विदुर तग भज खाई मुक्ति कही बड़िया तुम्हें भगत भिकारी निरत आखि नीर देखी हुआ द्रुपति तुम्हें भक्तर चिर आराध्य तुम्हें भक्तर कति मुकति भवपाली नयन गोटक सखा सुधामाकु कंदानीति रूपी मठ कूद मदन जईछ अपर्ण रत्न धन संपत्ति तुम लीलासिए सिना बुझिबो कर देईछ सीम सकति तुम भक्तर चिर आराध्य तुम भक्तर कति मुकति दास अंगटिए बोली हाथ धरी नाग पाद चली चाली हाथ छाड़ी पूरी लुचि जाओ पतहरा से विकल कंदाई भक्त आखिर झरी लोटक पुणी जोड़ी दिया भगवती रति तुम्हें भक्तर चिर आराध्य तुम्हें भक्तर कति मुकति पुरी रुद्रिपुर सहस्र जुजन सर्व बाला बचिला प्राण रे विपदान उद्धरित चकित करीछ जगत जन मोर पासे रही प्राण ठाकुर दिय मित्र विश्वास भक्ति तुम्हें भक्तर चिर आराध्य भक्तर कति मुकति भव विनोदिय भक्त बच्चल ज्ञान भक्तर प्रीति प्रणति तुम्हें भक्तर चिर आराध्य तुम्हें भक्तर कति मुकति तुम्हें भक्तर कति मुकति जय गुरु
Jai Guru. So, Jai Guru, young asked friends. We will start with attendance, and then afterwards, I'll ask CSC to explain the meaning of the song that she just sang. Aditi?
Jai Guru.
Abhyasa?
Jai Guru.
IC?
Jai Guru, IC Asuchi.
Jai Guru. Antik?
Jai Guru.
Ansh?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Anshul?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Arnav?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Arush?
Mercy, Bosani.
Jai Guru. Nadia?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Gemma? Jai Guru. Divya?
Na Jai Guru Divya আসছি।
Jai Guru. Timmy?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Eva?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Jagrut?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Naitik?
Jai Guru Ma.
Jai Guru. Pratyusha?
Jai Guru Ma.
Jai Guru. Pratyush?
Jai Guru Ma.
Jai Guru. Sanvi?
Jai Guru Ma.
Jai Guru. Saraswat?
Jai Guru Ma.
Jai Guru. Sarthak? Bhakti?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Bobby?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Shilpi?
Jai Guru. Shilpi is coming.
Jai Guru. Shreya?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Manu?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Jimmy?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Simran? Jai Guru. Shrija?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Suhani?
Jai Guru Ma.
Jai Guru. Yukta?
Jai Guru Ma.
You're an athlete, so we said we'll start with the meaning of the song. So,
Jai Guru.
Jai
Jai Guru, this is Aishi.
Jai Guru, I see. I marked you present. Is there anyone else that I missed? Wasn't here? Jai Guru, okay. So, Jai Guru, you want to go ahead and explain the meaning of the song that you just sang?
Jai Guru. This song is a beautiful devotional song that talks about the bond, relationship, and feelings between devotee and God. True devotees don't expect anything from God. They just love Him unconditionally. And God is so happy to see such devotees like Bhaktas Vidanu Viduru Suridas Dasya Bhavani Sabari and our Thakur Bhakta Evarama. Thakur always does everything for us, for his devotees. We are praying to have that faith, trust, and love, and pure, honest feelings for him. We can feel and understand him and his blessings by his blessings only.
Jai Guru. Right, and so in many of our songs, we talk about our relationship with Thakura, what we do as devotees, and an excellent point was made here. In our devotion, of that true devotion to him, we're not asking him for help and we're not trying to be his devotee to get specific things. Our devotion to him is we want to understand him better. We want his guidance. We want to be the best that we can be in the way that he wants us to be. And, in doing so, what we ask for is for more faith in him, for the ability to be strong and get through all the difficulties in our life because we are steadfast in our devotion to him, and to have that faith and that knowledge that we're gaining from him to be unwavering. And that foundational faith that we can have in him, that will get us through anything else we need. And oftentimes, at the beginning, when we first come as disciples to our Guru, when we're younger, a lot of us, and this is just part of our practice, we come to him and we share with him all of our problems. We want his help, and he will help us. He loves us, and he'll take care of us. But ultimately,
getting down to that devotion, that true devotion, that faith in him, these things will also happen naturally, and that's what we're working towards. So, okay, so today what we're getting back into is we've been reading the Gita. We've gotten through the first chapter, which was setting up the kind of scenario that we're in. So the Gita is a discourse between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. And it happens at the start of right before the war in the Mahabharata, when the Pandavas are going to fight the Kauravas. So far in the first chapter that we read, we learned about who's on both sides, and we learned that they're both getting ready, they're all equipped, ready to battle. And then we also got in the second half of the first chapter, we got to see what Arjuna is thinking and how he's feeling about having to go into battle with the Kauravas, who are his cousins, and some of the people on the Kaurava side who are also relatives and teachers and other people that are of importance to Arjuna, who have helped raise him, who have taught him, and who he respects and has bonds with because they are family. So that's where we've started to set up. Before we go into this second chapter today, the second chapter will kind of refer to what we heard about before, about what Arjuna's thoughts are. Does anyone remember, how does Arjuna feel about fighting his relatives? How does Arjuna feel coming into all of this about getting in? Jayaguru.
Arjuna feels he feels like he's not ready to fight against his relatives. Jayaguru.
He feels like he's not ready. And why does he feel like he's not ready? What feeling does he have? You know, is he what about it does he not like about fighting his relatives? Or like, how would we feel about fighting our relatives?
Jayaguru, this is Sanvi. He doesn't want to fight his relatives because like he cares about them and he doesn't want to do anything bad to them. Jayaguru.
Right. So, they're his relatives, he cares about them, he respects them, and, like all of us would be, he's naturally upset about having to fight them, and he thinks he's just really taken aback by this idea that he's going to have to fight them. If he kills them, that's also something that gives him a great amount of sadness and grief and worry. There's this idea that he can't fight them, so he doesn't want to. But he doesn't want to fight his relatives, like all of us would feel similar way, because he cares about them, he respects them, and that's something that's going to cause him great sadness. So he doesn't want to fight. Some of the reasons are, he cares about them. What are some other reasons? Do you remember any other reasons Arjuna gave that he shouldn't fight his relatives? Were there other reasons that we remember other than it makes him sad to think about?
Jayaguru, didn't he also believe that it was immoral and that it would cause great sin? Jayaguru.
Right. So another thing he did bring up, and we'll start to see a response from Lord Krishna about that in this passage we're reading, and part of it that we're reading today, is he also believes that it's immoral and sinful because these are his teachers, these are his family members, and he thinks, well, how is it right for me to kill these people who are related to me? That just seems like that would be immoral. And how is it right for me to kill people who have taught me when I'm supposed to respect them? That also seems like it should be immoral to him. So this grief, on one hand, he has this grief about killing people that he cares about, And on the other hand, he also has this idea, well, maybe this is immoral for me to do. And so we're now going to see that response. If you have this was emailed out yesterday, so make sure you have the reading up. And Yukta is going to read verses 1 through 16 for us in chapter 2. So Yukta, when you're ready.
Sanjay said, "Think Arjuna overwhelmed with pity, his mind grief-stricken, and his eyes full of tears." Sri Krishna spoke the following words. The Supreme Lord said, "My dear Arjuna, how has this delusion overcome you in this hour of peril? It is not befitting an honorable person. It leads not to the higher abode, but to disgrace. O Parth, it is not befit you to yield to this unmanliness. Give up such petty weakness of heart and words, O vanquisher of enemies." Arjuna said, "O Madhasadan, how can I dispute arrows in battle on men like Bhishma and Dronacharya, who are worthy of my worship, O destroyer of enemies? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to enjoy life by killing these noble elders, who are my teachers. If we kill them, the wealth and pleasure we enjoy will be tainted with blood. We do not even know which result of the war is possible for us, conquering them or being conquered by them. Even after killing them, we will not decide to live. Yet they have taken the side of Russia and now stand before us on the battlefield. I am confused about my duty and disguised with anxiety and faint-heartedness. I am your disciple and am surrendered to you. Please instruct me for such what is best for me. I can find no means of driving Lade's anguish that is drying up my senses. Even if I win a prosperous and unrivaled kingdom on earth or gain sovereignty like the celestial gods, I will be unable to dispel this grief." Sanjay said, "Having thus spoken, Gadaksha, that chastiser of enemies, addressed Shikash, Govind, I shall not fight," came silent. O Dhritarashtra, thereafter, in the midst of both the armies, Sri Krishna smiling spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. The Supreme Lord said, "While you speak words of wisdom, you are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future, shall any of us cease to be. Just as an embodiment soul continuously passes from childhood to youth to old age, similarly, at the time of death, the soul passes into another body. The wise are not deluded by this. O son of Kunti, the contact between the senses and the sense object gives rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. They are non-permanent and come and go like winter and summer seasons. O descendant of Balath, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Arjuna, noblest amongst men, that person who is not affected by happiness and distress, and remains steady, and both becomes eligible for revelation. Of transient there is no endurance, and of eternal there is no cessation. This has fairly been observed and included by the seers of the truth, after studying the nature of both.
Jai. So to start, do we have any questions?
Simran, I have one question.
Jai, go ahead.
In the first line, what the mind grief-stricken means? Teachers?
In the first line, grief-stricken. So basically, it's just saying that Arjuna's mind, he's just so overwhelmed with grief, with sadness about what he has to do. He's just feeling very bad about the idea of having to fight his family members. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Are there any other questions?
I didn't understand the last sentence from the text of 2.11. Can you just explain that?
So the last sentence is this the one that's 2.16 or sorry, you just said 2.11. The wise laments neither for the living nor for the dead?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we can start our discussion here then. So when we'll go back to the other part. So this is part of Krishna's response to Arjuna's grief about, like we talked about before now, Arjuna doesn't want to kill his family members. He thinks that that's probably going to be immoral. And it also just makes him very upset to think about because these are people he cares about. And killing them is going to cause him a lot of grief. So here Krishna says, the wise lament, so the wise grieve for neither the living nor the dead. So let's talk about this, like what do we think this means? So when Krishna says the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead, why don't they? What did he say before and after as the reasons why the wise or people that have ultimate knowledge, why don't they grieve for the living or the dead? Gemma, why do the wise not grieve for the living or the dead? What has Krishna said before or after about these two states?
I think the wise don't grieve for the living or the dead because they know that eventually your soul will be passed on from one body to another, and like they're not like deluded by it.
Yeah, right. So we have this idea that's posted before, and we're going to see a lot more description of what happens to the soul and what this means. But we have this idea that, and he talks about this in lines 13 and on, right? We have this idea of a soul. And so, like you said, Gemma, that when someone, we see someone, we know someone, when they are, whether they are living or whether they die, that soul is still there and that continuously passes on. And so that part is eternal. And so knowing that part, that essence of a person is always there, that soul, that Atma is always there. If we understand that that's always there and that continues on regardless, whether or not we see that as a person that we know or not, because they've died, we know that it goes on, and so we don't really waste our time grieving over, lamenting over the living nor the dead, or what state they're in, because we know ultimately that's just the soul, which is eternal. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
So I have a question regarding the verse 2.9, where I don't really know who Gubikesh or Trishikesh are, and in 2.16 I don't really understand that verse.
So one thing about the Gita and a lot of Hindu epics is they often don't use the actual names for people. They use epithets of things to describe them. So Gubikesh in this case is one of the terms, or one of the ways they refer to Arjuna. And Rishikesh and Govind both refer to Krishna. So it's just Arjuna talking to Krishna, and both of those use of those particular words, those names for them, just tell you something about that person. So either sometimes it's where they're from, sometimes we use words to talk about Arjuna is often referred to as a great warrior, things like that, just to vary who they are and then remind us things about who they are and who they are as people. For in our case, you can just think of it as Arjuna and talking to Krishna, and we'll get other meanings. And then for line 2.16, and we can have a discussion on this. So this last line here that we have is, of the transient there is no endurance, and of the eternal there is no cessation. This has verily been observed and concluded by the seers of the truth after studying the nature of both. So here, this kind of goes on with our discussion of the soul. So we talked about, right, the soul exists in our body as we change through our lives, and then that soul, Atman, will move on even after we die. It's still going to exist. It's just going to go somewhere else. It's going to be in another body. It's going to, if you achieve liberation, we've talked about this before, it's going to become our Brahman, but that soul exists, and that moves on. And so in this discussion, right, Lord Krishna brings up the idea that we have the soul that is not an illusion, and he talks about to Arjuna that this grief that he's feeling, what he's lamenting, all of these things that Arjuna has talked about that he's worried about, none of that is necessarily a real thing to be worried about because of this nature of the soul. And so to talk about 16, we have this idea of 14 and 16, that you have things that are not permanent. So we'll go into discussion on that, and then we'll get to your question about 16 here. So when in verse 14, we say, the contact between senses and sense objects give rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. These are non-permanent and come and go like the winter and the summer season. O descendant of Virus, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. What do we mean by these emotions that we have, these reactions that we have? What do we mean by them being transient? Aryan? What does it mean for these emotions and all of these things to be transient? Why are they transient?
Jai Guru. So my understanding of this verse is that basically all the emotions that we experience here are fleeting and they're not permanent. And that sort of mindset puts everything into context, and I feel like that explains some of the other lines, like 2.11, Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Right. So, like, what does it explain about that? So, if we know things are transient and we realize that they only last for a little time, how do we change our mindset to become more steady in the face of these things? What are we realizing when we know that it's not permanent, things change all the time?
Jai Guru. So, to quote the last sentence of 2.11, it says, "The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead." And I feel like that knowledge, that wisdom, that these emotions are transient, it makes you aware that, like, death is, I'm not sure exactly how to word it, but it makes you, like, just less scared of death, knowing that the soul moves on. Jai Guru.
Right. So, I guess, when we're feeling grief, when we're feeling happiness, we're really caught up in that. But if you realize that these feelings are not permanent, that these things change, when you think about the permanence of things, and like something like death, and you realize that that's not actually permanent, that's not actually going to be there, like our emotions, like the seasons, all of these things are not permanent. They have, and you really realize this, and that's your perspective. we become steady in the face of those things, right? They don't cause us, we don't go through the emotional highs and lows. We stay steady and kind of are able to not feel as much grief when other things happen because we realize that none of it's permanent. And so where this comes into, in this last line we have 2.16, the 16th verse here. Of the transient there is no endurance, and of the eternal there is no cessation. So, like we talked about, the soul and in the body that it's in, these seasons, these feelings that we have, those are transient. They don't last. And eternal things like this soul that's going from body to body over time, all these places, that has no cessation. Another translation of this line, since we are reading an English translation from Sanskrit, another way this is translated is of the real, there is no endurance, and of the unreal, there is no cessation. Let's think about that. So if we think of this line as of the real, there is no endurance. Sorry, of the unreal, there is no endurance. And of the real, there is no cessation. When we're trying to figure out and position ourselves and know what's right or wrong, what's going to be important and not important to us in our spiritual journey, how do we know if something is really important and worth grieving over? How do we know that something is the truth, the reality, what is the ultimate truth? And how do we know that it's something fleeting and unreal? Anshul, how do we know that something is real versus unreal, and how we've been discussing it and how Krishna has been describing it thus far?
Very good. I guess one possible interpretation is that real is things that are more materialistic and temporary, and unreal are things that are more, I guess, more spiritual, less materialistic, and
okay, so I can restate that. So similar, but we'll flip that. So when we're talking about unreal, when we're thinking about things that we shouldn't focus on too much, things that are currently in Arjuna's grief, dragging him down to feel this grief. So the unreal would be those things that are kind of materialistic in there, but they're transient, right? They don't exist for very long. And so we know that those are unreal. Those are things that we don't need to focus on as much. And then that real, those are the spiritual things, like the soul moving on. Those things are eternal. And that is what we should put our focus on. And so in focusing on that real, those unreal things, those transient things that change all the time, those changes won't bother us as much if we focus on the real. And so that's what we're looking at and thinking about in this line 16, and then that truth of nature and studying the nature of the unreal versus the real gets us to that reality that change and transient is a part of this world that we live in, but we shouldn't let that rule us. So with that, we're out of time. We'll continue this discussion, and if I didn't completely answer your question on about 16, the next line we're going to read next month will go a lot deeper into what this line is saying. So it's going to give a lot more examples. Lord Krishna will give a lot more examples that will help us understand this line. With this, we're out of time, and we've Shreya has Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Today I have Pari and Bhava Vinimaya Seva. Over the last several months, I have been conducting the YA sessions with the youngest of our young aspirants and have been amazed that I leave each of those discussions as though the knowledge was intended more for me than for them. We've talked about everything from gratitude to overcoming jealousy to our true selves and even wishing happiness for others. And I have yet to come across a topic that they are unable to understand. I find myself looking forward to their answers to my questions because of the simplicity of their thoughts. This newfound simplicity for me is what I feel has allowed tremendous growth within me that I wanted to share. I came across a paragraph in the book, The 4 Agreements, that I think about very often. It's within a chapter focused on always doing your best and states, in India, they perform a ritual called puja. In this ritual, they take idols that represent God in many different forms and bathe them, feed them, and give their love to them. They even chant mantras to these idols. The idol itself is not important. What is important is the way they perform the ritual. The way they say, "I love you, God." This was incredibly profound to me as it helped me realize the underlying simplicity of why we practice what we do as Thakura's disciples. Nothing is meant to complicate our spiritual journey, but for me personally, I had been reading books like Aropadesa and struggling to understand the message and then practicing the teachings. I was missing the underlying essence that Thakura states very simply from the very beginning. He tells us just to learn to love him a little. When we learn to love God, our intentions become pure. I've since revisited the Upadesa and now clearly see the simplicity that Thakura is trying to share. Throughout the book, there are sections like Adopt Only One Principle and Easy and Simple Sadhana that emphasize again and again that just practicing one or two things wholeheartedly will lead us to places we could never have imagined. I have seen for myself how powerful it is to remember what's important is the way in which my actions say, "I love you, God." That paragraph from earlier then continues on by saying, God is life. God is life in action. The best way to say, "I love you, God," is to live your life by doing your best. I pray to Thakura that I can continue to find the simplicity in his desires for us so that I continue on my spiritual path and live my life doing my best. Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. प्राणाराध्य श्री श्री ठाकुर महाराज मोर सतीर्थ भाई माँ माने आदर पिला माने आज मोर पाली सेवा भाव विनिमय आसुबे दीटा जिनस विषय कहवाई चाहूँगी जमी श्रेया आम पढ़ले the essence is really how thankful we are and we should be always to the God for everything that God has given to us. That's the kind of essence of it. Right? तापर छुआ मानकर आज जो वाई सेशन रे जोटा जस्ट आलोचना चलथिला जे how the happy and the sorrowness they're pretty transient and it's a very relative also. कहा पे कोटा happiness जोटा जनक पे happiness अन्य जनक पे sorrowness ही करता है and vice versa also. तेणु से जिन गुड़ाक बिकज इट इज रिलेटिव आम से जापर ना सो दैट्स व्हाई इट इज वेरी ट्रांजिएंट सेटा देखी मत गोटे कथा सब मु मन रखी थाए सुख आसु कि दुख आसु से स्कूल बेलू आम हेडमास्टर मत कही सब बोर्ड लिखाई रही थाए इवेन दिस साल पास अवे थॉमस टिल्टन सेटा उक्तिटा इवेन दिस साल पास अवे सो जिते जहाँ हुए सो सुखर हो कि दुखर हो सब मैंने आई काइंड ऑफ रिकॉल दैट सो सेटा गोटे जिनसा किंतु जेहेतु आम दुनिया रे अच्छे सब जिनस देकी जीवाक पड़ो से गोटे जिनसा आम केमती रखा आउ तारी मूल केमी रखा राइट कहीं कहवाटा सहज करवाटा कष्ट से जो आमर परम सौभाग्य आमर परम कारुणिक ठाकुर श्रीचरण लाभ कर समस्ते सबु बेले सबु संघ पूजा हो अधिवेशन हो
सब बेले से गोटे कथा आम शुणी आसुचे से जिनसा केमी आम भाव विनिमय कर विश्वास सब खाली आज तो नुहे सब बेले से गोटे कथा आम पढ़ी आसुचे विश्वास जो भक्ति से विश्वासटा हूँ सबुठ बड़ कथा किसी नथिले खाली विश्वास थिले ठाकुर पाखे सरल विश्वास सहज विश्वास थिले सबकिछि लाभ हो पार सेटा गोटे गोटे छोट जिनस कहि जोटा पूरा पूरा ज्वलंत उदाहरण मो लाइफ रे जे ठाकुर जो विश्वासटा प्रथम जब ठाकुर को जानी मझे प्रथम जो आई थिंक फर्स्ट और सेकेंड सम्मेलन रे सो जो मोर गोटे मान छोट जिनसटे मोर अंटा जोरे धरी उठी पार नी आबे जो कहले भाई कहले जे ये जो आनंद सेवा विषय कहले पर वर्ष से प्रथम वर्ष होता सेकेंड इयर कथा कहूँ जे से आनंद सेवार स्क्रिप्टा केमती लिखा हम मत प्रथम लगे जे किसी हो पारनी कहीं मुझे टोटाली उठी पार नी जोरे सब धरला मैंने मुझे शोईकी तकिया देकी ठाकुर स्क्रिप्टा ये जो आनंद सेवार स्क्रिप्टा लिखुली मन से बहुत विश्वास थिला जे ठाकुर जिनसटा ठाकुर निजे करदेवे निश्चित एथरे किसी भाबार ना एमती है से विश्वास बल ही ठाकुर कम केमती कर छोट जिनसा खाली शेयर करने चाहूँगी जे आई वाज नॉट एबल टू वॉक एट वन पॉइंट आई थिंक 1 month before the Samilani, and during the Samilani I was able to do perform, right? So हमें जोड़ा किसी जानी पारने खाली से गोटे सिंपल विश्वास ठाकुर पाखे थी दरकार आ गोटे जिनस आमर सब पढ़ा हुए जो उपासना पढ़ाला उपासना चिंता द्वारा वाक्य द्वारा कर्म द्वारा उपासना कहले तो आम गोटे हूँ ठाकुर उपासना किंतु आप एलाबोरेट करेंगे देखिले आम बहुत प्रकार उपासना करुचे ठाकुर पाखे बसला ठाकुर उपासना करुचे चिंता करुचे ठाकुर विग्रह को देखिकी से चिंता मन में आसुची वाक्य से ठाकुर कथा पढ़ुचे कर्म कर चलुचे ठाकुर बाहिक जहाँ सेवा पूजा से कर चलुचे किंतु थे जो विषय को डेई पड़ला सेटा सब उपासना सब ऑफिस टाइम टारे ऑफिस काम विषय सब उपासना चलते से विषय को भावुचे से विषय को कहूचे से कार्य लगुचे तेणु सबुरी मूल से ठाकुर जो कहले जे से उपासना टाकू केमिति सबु बेले ठाकुर मन रखी ठाकुर को मन रखी से करा पड़ो जो से ऑफिस काम हो पिला काम हो घर काम हो कि ठाकुर सन्ध्या बेले सकाल पूजा बेले भी हो सेटा केमती हो पार सेटा केमती सब ठाकुर को मन रखी कर सब मुझे प्रैक्टिस करे कि सब हो पारेनि जे ठाकुर जमी आम दल भाई आसते कहते जुआड़े भी गले घर बाहर भी गले ठाकुर आप चलतु आम साथी चलतु ठाकुर आगे आगे जाऊँ पछे पछे जाऊे सब से भावनाटा रही ठाकुर कि सब पाखे अच्छा जहाँ कम कले भी ठाकुर ही अच्छा बाहर को गले गाड़ी में बसी पड़े मैं मो कथा मुझे कहूँ सब गाड़ी में मोर ठाकुर गीत ही बाजू थाए तेणु ठाकुर गीत बाजिले से ठाकुर कथा भी मन पड़ो सो ठाकुर ये भाई माँ देखा हेले ठाकुर विषय के आलोचना ठाकुर कथा के आग मन पड़ो से जिनसा सब प्राक्टिस करवा आईटा आमको आम संघ मध्यम विभिन्न पूजा मध्यम विशेष उत्सव हो संघ पूजा हो पाठचक्र हो एत सहजरे ठाकुर आमको कहीं कहीं सेटा नहले बारंबार अभ्यास न पड़े प्रति सप्ताह प्रति सप्ताह हो मासिक हो भाई माँ मान सहित देखा नहले साधु संघ सहित देखा नहले विश्व दुनिया माड़िकी आमको यहाँ मन पड़ोनी तेणु सब से कथा को आम केमती अभ्यास लगे पार से किसी नहले भी केमिति सबू संघ पूजा जॉइन कर सब जो सुजोग हो इन पर्सन जॉइन कर विशेष उत्सव हो पाठचक्र हो जहाँ हो संघरे हो कि अन्य को भाई माँ मान गृहासन हो केमी इन पर्सन सब जॉइन कर देखला माने से कथा ही मन पड़ो से कथा मन पड़े मन से जिनसा जो कहते जो सिंपल जिनसा सहज जिनसा विश्वास भावटा से सब बढ़ी उठ से भावटा बढ़ी उठले आ जो आम जो कहले रिलेटेड सुख दुख जो ये क्षणिक स्थायी से जिन किसी लगे माने देहटा पूरा जमी सीजन रूड कहती सीजन रूड हो किसी लगे तो से जिनसा सब ठाकुर केमती मनमत सेवक सेविका साज आमको सब दिंतु से गुड़ा पूरा सीजन उड होकर सेवक सेविका हो पार जिते दुख कष्ट आसिले किए कौन कहीदेले सेगुड़ा को भ्रूक्षेप न करी देहरे बाजिकी झड़ी पड़ देह भितर जमी न पशिब ठाकुर पाखे एति प्रार्थना केवल निजपाई नुहे पूरा संघ संघर यहाँ आमर नुआ वर्ष आरंभ है वार्षिक उत्सव पर प्रथम अधिवेशन समस्त भाई माँ मान तरफ ठाकुर पाखे प्रार्थना जनाऊँगी समस्त आमको सीजन रूट कर दिंतु जमती कि सब दुख कष्ट आसिले भी से कथा सब थाऊ आप ही मन था अन्न से गुड़ाक इवेन पास हुए करके आसिक देहरे बाजिकी झड़ी पड़ू से कृपा करूँ ठाकुर जय गुरु जय गुरु जय गुरु
मध्याह्न भोग निवेदन
जय गुरु परमाराध्य श्री श्री ठाकुर महाराज उपस्थित भाई माँ पिला माने आमर अधिवेशन सरला पर श्री श्री ठाकुर महाराज को मध्याह्न भोग निवेदन कर भक्त माने प्रसाद सेवन करेंगे से निमंत्रण जनाऊँगी संध्या पूजा निगम शक्ति मंदिर में अनुष्ठित होगापाई घासन अनुष्ठित होगापाई श्री श्री ठाकुर महाराज उनको समस्त भक्त भाई माँ मान सहित निमंत्रण जनाऊँ जय गुरु जय गुरु
जय गुरु श्री श्री ठाकुर भाई माँ मान को वसंत संयोग 13 तारीख निमंत्रण करुचे जय गुरु
जय गुरु श्रेयासी गुरुदास भाई और मु श्री ठाकुर महाराज सबू भक्त भाई माँ और यंग एस्पिरेंट्स को नेक्स्ट संघ पूजा सेशन 30 जनवरी को निमंत्रण करुचे। प्रथम अधिवेशन 7:15 AM ईस्टर्न टाइम रे आरंभ हेबो एवं द्वितीय अधिवेशन 9:30 AM ईस्टर्न टाइम रे हेबो। संघ पूजा रे जोग दे सेवार सुजोग देबे एवं पूजा को साफल्य मंडित करिवे। जय गुरु
क्षमा प्रार्थना जय गुरु
भाई
जय गुरु जय भाई आपके किड्स के निमंत्रण करते भाई कले जय गुरु श्री श्री ठाकुर महाराज भक्त भाई माँ पिला माने आज संघ पूजा मोर पाड़ी सेवा थिला जानत अजाणत रे मो तरफ किंबा अन्य सब भाई माँ मैंने जो मैंने सेवार थे तरफ जहाँ किसी भूल त्रुटि रही जाइए क्षमा करेंगे ठाकुर जमती यार पुनरावृत्ति न हो। जय गुरु जय गुरु जय
जय गुरु शिवानी जय गुरु
जय गुरु सुना होची भाई
जय गुरु
दया मोया श्री चाराणी पारे निवेदना
दया मोया चरणे करे निवेदन निरंतर तव नाम करिबे स्मरण निरंतर तव नाम करिबे स्मरण इहा छड़ा न रहिबा इतर कामना इहा छड़ा न रहिबा इतर कामना एहि मात्र भिक्षा मोर इतिकी प्रार्थना एहि मात्र भिक्षा मोर इतिकी प्रार्थना तुम्हें प्रभु मुहि दास एहि अहंकार तुम्हें प्रभु मुहि दास एहि अहंकार एकमात्र जीव प्रबल संस्कार एथि लगी जीवे काले न मिले मो पति एथि लगी जीवे काले न मिले मो पति तथापि रखिबी मने अनंत द्रुपति तथापि रखिबी मने अनंत द्रुपति तुम्हारी दृष्टि भीतरे तुम्हारी जगते तुम्हारी दृष्टि भीतरे तुम्हारी जगते पृथ्वी जही तही तुम्हारी इंगिते पृथ्वी जही तही तुम्हारी इंगिते ध्वंस परे रचनार अभिनव रूप ध्वंस परे रचनार देखी देखी आसी जीव असल स्वरूप देखी देखी आसी जीव असल स्वरूप मिलाई न पड़े जीवे तब जंत्रेश्वर 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 तुम नामे बाई जीवे भंग बेगा मोर तुम नामे बाई जीवे भंग बेगा मोर सुनु बन सुनो कही शिव अहंकार सुनु बन सुनो कही तुम्हें प्रभु मुहि दास एतिकी संस्कार तुम्हें प्रभु मुहि दास एतिकी संस्कार प्रेममय श्री चरणे करे निवेदन 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 तुम जय गाउथिबी सारा जीवन तुम जय गाउथिबी सारा जीवन जय गुरु जय गुरु जय गुरु जय 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 जय गुरु जय गुरु जय गुरु जय
जय श्री ब्रह्मांडे महाराज की जय गुरु जय गुरु जय गुरु।